Welcome to the Rant Live. Hello, everybody, and hello to you, Evan.
Hola, senor.
You seem to be in a very familiar location.
Yeah, the call is coming from inside the house, as they say.
Evan is in my house. Actually, we're not doing it. We're in different rooms because it's kind of easier to do the setup. Otherwise, we'd be sharing the same mic, and there's not a lot of room here and stuff. So, Evan is in my my son's room, and it's not my son's birthday, by the way, even though behind him. But there is it is a Wrigley themed room. And you can see the scoreboard, even though Game 7 was not in Wrigley Field, that is kind of a Wrigley version of the final score of Game 7, final line. And so it's a fun room. My son's a big baseball fan.
That's right. You can't put something like that out on Twitter because somebody would point out, like, well, if Game 7 wasn't at Wrigley, that's not even real. Like, thank you, Captain Buzzkill. That was really nice.
Or what if you getting DFA'd during the doubleheader? That's a good question.
It's entirely possible. If one of us is Rex Brothers, I think I'd be all in favor of that. But we'll see.
For sure. I don't know. Is it even worthwhile? I mean, okay. I guess we can talk. We can talk about the game. Listen, the Cubs are on us. The Cubs are streaking. They've won 2 games in a row, which is delightful. It's about as good as it gets. And because they just won today, and they won on Monday because yesterday's game got postponed. So technically, they kind of won yesterday. Is that a 3-game winning streak then?
They didn't lose, which is, kind of that's although at this point, right? Like I get and somebody like messaged us on our Facebook page, right, to inform us that, because I had written a headline to something that said the Cubs don't actually want to win, and they made sure to clarify for me the players still want to win. I'm like, yes, but I didn't say that. I said the Cubs don't want to win. Like, there's no incentive for ownership of the front office. There's no reason for them to want to win. Yeah, the players always want to compete. They always want to win. But, and even as a fan at this point, you're almost like, great, well, okay, now you win. Right? Like, now after this horrible futility, now you decide you're going to start winning ball games. Like, when people are actually fired up about a good draft pick, which is kind of funny. And I would personally, we were talking about this earlier, I would personally love to see them run off a few and just hurt the draft chances. Even now, let's be honest, like, baseball draft is very different from the NBA or NFL, and I totally get that. But it is funny that as bad as they were and have been since no hitting the Dodgers, that they could end up kind of costing themselves a couple spots there late. So that would be hilarious to me.
That would be, and it seems like the Rockies are the team that they can beat, because they beat them back on August 4th. And then they have won again here. And they're going for the sweep, dude. I mean, that's real.
Yeah. Well, they almost, like, they won 2 out of 3 in Cincinnati. They do this sometimes, right? Which is, and the thing, and the Rockies are bad. Like, the Rockies are very bad. However, the Rockies are actually really good at home. So when you consider how bad they are overall, and to say, they're actually well above 500 at home, that means they're that much worse on the road. So, and it's really kind of weird, right? You would think it'd almost be the opposite. If you're a bad team, you would think you'd get blown out a lot at Coors Field by teams that are just stronger offensively. The Rockies don't score a bunch of runs, and so it's a little bit weird. And then to watch, the Cubs are really lighting them up right here as far as what we're seeing. Patrick Wisdom hitting, big home runs and coming up. So, yeah, hey, they could get it. They could get a sweep here and cost themselves in the drive for 5, but we'll see. I put nothing past them at this point.
Well, they're going into the White Sox over the weekend, and they are sure to get swept. I'm assuming. I'll be very surprised if they win a game there. Although, wow, that Craig Kimbrell trade sure didn't work out well for the White Sox, did it? You're welcome.
No, and it hasn't. And it hasn't worked out. Like, I get that Liam Hendricks is the guy they went out and spent the money on in the offseason. And I get that you don't want to upset the apple cart, so to speak, but like you went out and traded for a Hall of Fame level closer, right? You went to get Kimbrel for a reason. And I know like La Russa has played coy about this, or he did from the start, about, well, kind of that he would alternate them back and forth. But I think the whole situation's blowing up in their face because Kimbrel has sucked in the 8th inning. And he seems like one of those guys, as much as I know people want to say it shouldn't matter, if he's not in there in a save situation, he just doesn't seem like he's got the same kind of juice. And he hasn't, and Hendricks hasn't been that good. I mean, so now you're effectively making both players worse by having Kimbrel, and I don't know, would Hendricks be bad in the 8th and then Kimbrel keeps being bad if he gets the 9th? I don't know. But it hasn't worked out real well for him, and I'm not mad. I just think it's kind of funny.
Yeah, I was kind of confused by that trade just in general. I mean, it's the fact that they offered up basically 2 major league players, young major league players, for Kimbrel. I was like, do they really need Kimbrel? It didn't make sense. They already had a closer, so I don't know. They went and got him, and it's not working out for them. I mean, they're still going to make the playoffs, and I'm sure everything will work out in the end. But it is kind of funny to watch. And Cody Hoyer just pitched today, and he pitched, did he 2 innings? I didn't see. I was getting Chipotle.
Yeah, I didn't look at the line, but he's been really, really good since he came over. I know the Cubs worked with him on a couple little grip things, and try to get that in order because he's too many walks, and he had a really good season in what was it, last year, and then it wasn't quite there for him. But I mean, at this point, right, like you said, you get a young reliever who's got potential to be kind of a, I don't know about a lights out necessarily high leverage guy all the time, but certainly maybe in that Ryan Tepera-ish role, right, where you're kind of that 6th or 7th, like the first line of defense, getting to the setup guy. I don't know if he is a setup guy, but he fits into that. And if you get that for a year of Craig Kimbrel, that'll, not even a year, a few months of Craig Kimbrel. Now the White Sox could pick up his option, and we'll see. But you get that in addition to Nick Madrigal, who I think a lot of people are divided. There's not that many people that are, I guess nobody thinks he'll be terrible, but there's a bunch of people that think, yeah, okay, he'll be a fine, decent second baseman. There's a lot of people that really, really like the bat, that's just going to play. Like he's going to be a guy who's consistently batting well into the 300s, reaching base, playing solid second. If that's what you get, and even if that's all he is, that's still a really, really good return for a couple months of a reliever, even a big-time closer, because the Cubs were terrible. And so Craig Kimbrel would be great, but if your team sucks, a closer is worthless to you. So I still think that's one of more, and I honestly think the Chafin deal, again, any of those relievers, right? A high-leverage reliever, when you're never going to play in a high-leverage situation, is pretty much only worthwhile to the other team that you're trading with. So anything you get in return, I think it's worthwhile. So I don't know. I think they came out really well on those deals.
Yeah, Hoyer over his last 15 games has a 1.35 ERA, 13.1 innings pitched. He's given up 7 hits over that time. Only walked 7. Only struck out 7, and he has walked only 4. So that's some pretty good productivity there. That's a guy, you and I were talking about earlier today, who on the major league team we can actually see actually being a part of like a World Series caliber team. And Cody Hoyer is definitely one of those guys for sure.
Yeah, and he'll be around. And just to address, there's a comment in the section for those of you who aren't seeing it. Kimbrel didn't have to stay in Chicago. His daughter has had some health issues. It was more a situation of kind of when Jed Hoyer was weighing where do we send people. That was sort of a favor, so to speak, of being able to keep Kimbrel close to home without having to move or any of those things. He could have been traded anywhere. I mean, that's just the nature of the business. But it was more a matter of Jed trying to soften that blow a little bit in terms of how do you figure out what are you doing with your child's medical needs and that sort of thing. Because certainly his wife and his daughter could have stayed, and he could have gone somewhere and they could have met him at certain times. So he didn't have to stay there, but that was, I think, part of what helped. And while I don't really buy a lot of what Hoyer said, and I think he kind of I don't know. He went off a little bit with some things he probably shouldn't have said about the trades after the fact. But I do think he tried to put those players, not only to get what was the best return for the Cubs, but he tried to put those players in some decent situations for them personally to where they could go and succeed and where it would make sense for them as individuals versus just saying, what's the best return we can get? And I'm not saying he gave up a return that the Cubs could have gotten better, but I am saying he weighed some different factors, and that it appears that way, even if he did kind of throw them under the bus on the way out of town.
And backed up and ran over them.
Yeah.
I tell you what Hoyer did have to do. He had to win that trade with the Chicago White Sox because that Quintana trade was a total and utter disaster. That will go down in the history books of the Chicago Cubs as possibly one of the worst trades they've ever made. At least returns that they got.
Yeah, so. and that's one of those. Quintana was one of them. I wrote about this, and the post did really well for some reason, even for something I just kind of threw out. But it hasn't been a good since the Cubs traded off, or a lot of the pitchers who have left the Cubs organization, right? They haven't looked real good since they've left. And some of the relievers, but you mentioned Kimbrel, he's not doing great. Jake Arrieta clearly having some issues there in San Diego, which everyone expected, but like Tyler Chatwood not doing so well, didn't do well with the Blue Jays, hasn't done well with the Giants. And then, as you mentioned, Quintana, who's been injured, who was working out of the pen a lot, and then he came in and had a really disastrous start his last time out. So I don't want to look at that and be like, I feel good about somebody else's struggles, but there are at least a few things where it looks better that the Cubs have kind of let some of these guys go or moved on from them in one way or the other. But the Arrieta thing was like the most. And then everybody's like, okay, what's when he left that game earlier?
No
They're
sense.
like, what's going to be the injury now? And it's like hamstring again. They're talking about it like, okay, sure.
Yeah. Bad outing, injury.
Yeah.
It's like the guy can't. He just can't own it. Why can't he own it?
Because his ego's too big. We saw him get shelled. I was at the game in Cincinnati when he got shelled there. Oh, I had a laceration on my finger. Then why were you pitching? Why were you out there at all? And then he has the stinker in San Francisco. Oh, I was throwing up before the game. Again, why were you pitching? Then he lays the next egg, and they're like, well, he's had a hamstring thing going on for a while. Again, why? We thought he could get through it. Like, once or twice. But dude, this is not a young guy who, should just know better by now. Like Jake, or who shouldn't know better. But, like, what are you doing, David Ross? Oh, this guy isn't very good to begin with, and now he's hurt. What the hell? Let's just send him out there and see if he's still any good or not. Maybe he can battle through. No, he can't. He's shown for the last 4 years that he can't battle through it. He is washed. And good on you, San Diego, that you couldn't find literally anyone else on the planet that could come in and pitch better for you as the sinking ship just goes down. It is wild to me that this is a team that's fighting at this point, fighting for a wild card. They're not fighting for a division title.
Yeah, they're like a game back of Cincinnati.
Yeah, since he's playing well, despite the Cubs beating them twice, inexplicably. And then the Padres say, this guy is so bad. The Cubs, who were trying to lose, don't even want to keep letting him pitch for them because he's so bad.
They would have been better off just with a bullpen game.
Yes.
Why not just do that?
Or getting anybody. Okay, find a double.
Did they cut him? Did they cut him yet?
I don't think so. He's hanging out like riding his skateboard in San Diego or something. I mean, I don't know what they're. But how does a contending team, like, he wasn't good enough for a team that was tanking its way to the 5th draft pick.
Yeah.
And a contender is picking him up. Like, that was bizarre, man. And then the fact that not only did he get shelled, but there was also the injury stuff that came up out of it. Like, how many times do you need to read this story before you get tired of it? So it cracks me up. And I'm just, whatever, man. It was great for his time with the Cubs the first time around, and it definitely just did not come together very well this second go round. But more power to him. Good luck with that.
That's great. So we have a comment here that says, I am confusing you with my Bears apparel. It's because my friends beat me up when I wear Cubs apparel. No, it's not. I'm trying to be optimistic. I feel a little bit more optimistic about the Bears potential season. I think they've got possibly a 500 record on the horizon. Who knows when Justin Fields will start? So
I love this. Like they might be 500. I feel a lot better about them than I do the Cubs. Which I mean,
the
makes
Cubs
sense,
are just
right.
the Cubs are hot
the
trash.
Cubs are so
Let's
far
face
under
it.
now. Yeah. Oh, they're awful. I mean, they've been awful since that no hitter in L.A. But 2 months. That was 2 months ago. Not
It's
just
been a
just
long
over
2 months.
Yeah, it's been a real long 2 months. Yesterday was exactly 2 months, so we're a day past that. It was June 24th. They were in first place in the NL Central, tied with the Brewers. And now they're like 22 games back in 2 months. Like, it is wild exactly how bad this stretch of baseball has been from that point.
You were saying, what's their record been? Like you said, right around 200 win percentage?
Yeah, I think it's like 220. It's a little higher now because the last time I calculated was before these last 2 wins, I think. So I think it was on Monday morning when I wrote up a piece about, how bad they've been or what's going on. And I think that at that point, up until Monday, they had like a 220 winning percentage since that no-hitter. And they were at like 181 since the trade deadline. I mean, it has been brutal. And of course, you're looking at immediately after the no-hitter, they had the 11-game losing streak, and then they fumbled around a little bit, and then they had the 12-gamer, right? And then in the midst of that, they had the period where they lost 13 straight games at Wrigley Field. So they went, before Monday's win, they went 28 days between winning a game at Wrigley. It was July 26th.
I was at that game.
August 23rd. Yeah. So July 26th, August 20, was it the 23rd at that point? Yeah, the 23rd. And so if you count February as a full month, then they went a full month. And if they had not walked that game off, and did you know that was their first walk-off homer since July of 2019? So it had been over more than 2 years since they'd had a walk-off homer, which, again, to win a game at Wrigley, which, of course, a walk-off is going to win, and in order to walk it off, you have to be at home. But it's very hard to really look at this and say that's the longest, 13 games, the longest home losing streak ever. This is the first time they've lost multiple double-digit losing streaks in the same season. You look at all these things. It is incredible just how bad. We know that there's been some futility, but the level to which they've been bad is unprecedented. A lot of people are like, there was some bad baseball in 2012, 2013, 2014 as they were getting this going. This is worse. Like, and the last couple wins notwithstanding, this team right now is worse than anything we saw when they first rebounded. And granted, they could pull a few games out here and they might avoid losing 100 games for the 4th time in franchise history. But they could just go on another bad streak and they could still get there. I mean, I think they still got to win 6 more games, right? Isn't that where we're at now? They got to win 6 more to avoid 100 losses. So they got 56 wins right now.
Seems like a tall order.
Or 57. 57.
Who do they play? So, okay, they play the White Sox. Probably not going to win a game there. And then they play the Twins. The Twins are dirt. They play the Pirates. Hey, they play the Pirates 7 more times. So then they play the Reds.
And the Reds are going for it. The Reds have a spot. Oh, man.
Chris Bryant and the Giants come to town. Chris Bryant's probably going to hit like 5 home runs. And then he'll get a standing ovation from the 20 fans that are there.
Yeah. So once. Yay. Oh, man. Can we stop? I'm sorry, I'm looking at the comments. We got to stop telling people how to fan.
I was joking about getting beaten up. I don't really get beaten up. It was a joke. It's called sarcasm, man. I just felt like wearing a Bears hat today.
But would bandwagon fans beat you up for still wearing the stuff? Or would they just, I figured they would just not give a shit anymore.
And I'm not embarrassed to wear Cubs gear. I wear Cubs gear all the time. Today's a Bears day.
I go Cubs adjacent. That's why I'm, minor league stuff. I got my Max Bain t-shirt on. But yeah, I do like.
Cubs related.
So Tom Garcia says in here, yeah, I hope Bryant destroys the Cubs too. I sincerely hope that because Tom Ricketts in the Wrigley Field that he saved. We were talking about the propaganda video that he made for himself, that the Cubs made for themselves, about the whole saving Wrigley and all this stuff. But I'm like, of all the bad timing, right? And I knew what this video was going to be, and I knew what they were going to pump on people with it. But to release that at a time when, I mean, okay, with all allowances for the idea that this is a rescheduled game, although the game today was supposed to have been a day game originally, right? Monday and Tuesday were night games. Today was supposed to have been an afternoon game before it got rescheduled as a doubleheader, correct?
I do not know.
Okay, I thought it was.
Sounds legit. Let's just go with it.
Yeah, we'll say that was the case. So, so for a 1:20 start on a Wednesday, when Patrick Wisdom hit that go-ahead home run, there were like 8 people in the bleachers, right? So I don't care, even if it wasn't originally scheduled to be an afternoon game, even if it is a Wednesday, you gotta have like there should be more. Like I would say, were the bleachers even at 25% capacity in that shot?
No.
Okay, so like 10%, maybe
Probably something like that. Yeah.
Like don't give me the whole it's a weekday, in the afternoon. Okay, it's Wrigley Field. That's the idea, right? But we've talked about this and going through there. So the idea that the Cubs will sell out regardless, I think that should have been put to bed a long time ago. But it has been absolutely it has been double tapped in the back of the head and then buried 6 feet deep out in the desert next to, Paulie Walnuts or whatever out there somewhere in Vegas. This is not a team that can afford to keep playing like this. Literally can't afford, if they want to make money, if they need to drive this, their revenues, and even if Tom Ricketts says it's not about making money, but if he says 70% of our revenue comes from game day activities and you only got that place 25% full at best, come on, man.
Dude, old man Ricketts got some debt payments he needs to make.
Dude, but they saved Wrigley. They saved it.
They did. So we should all go and just go to the games because Tom Ricketts was such an amazing guy that he saved the Ricketts family, saved Wrigley Field, and they deserve so many props. Forget about what they did to the team.
Yeah.
Yeah, they won a World Series, sure.
Yeah, but they are Wrigley. But you talked about that. I don't remember if it was last week or what, but even their, the marketing that they're doing, right, is they're talking about the experience of Wrigley. They're, you know what I mean? They're pitching that as much as anything because you can't pitch the team right now. So, and I get it. I mean, I understand that those things are part and parcel with it. Wrigley Field is an entity unto itself that essentially is separate from the Cubs because people will go there just to check it off their bucket list, right? So I totally understand that. But at this point, they're leaning really heavily into come to Wrigley Field to see the ballpark. Never mind the raging dumpster fire of a team that we've just set ablaze in the middle of the field.
Don't pay attention to that.
Yeah.
Although I will say the tour of Wrigley is really cool. So if you ever get a chance to tour Wrigley Field, very cool. Probably, I mean, it's always good to sit around and have a beer there, but I don't know. So I brought the family to 7 straight games there at the end of July, the last homestand that we saw all our favorites and before they were traded. And I had my 2 kids there, 7 and 9, one of whom's room you are in right now. And it was fun. And Chris Bryant threw us a ball. I caught it. And so we have that, one of the final balls Chris Bryant threw up. And it was fun. But, there was a chance that they would win some of the games. They didn't win many of them. That was the last game they had won before they beat the Rockies the other day. That was the last before their 13-game losing streak. But it's like now, I mean, I wouldn't do that. With this team on the field, honestly, I would not bring my kids and put myself through 7 straight games of this baseball. It's not something that I would want to do. I mean, I'd still go to Chicago, and we went around the town and saw the museums and stuff. We'd probably spend more time going to the zoo and the museums and the beach and stuff. But I don't know. It's just, yeah, you're right. At this point, it's just not really all that great to watch. There's really not a lot of prospects that are on the team that you see being a part of the team in the future, except maybe just a couple guys like Hoyer and I mean, like Wilson Contreras isn't a prospect and he's not even playing because he's injured. But he's obviously going to be a part of the team going forward. But, and maybe Wisdom is a part of the team going forward, but he's 29 years old. But you do have Justin Steele starting tonight. And we were talking about when you look at the prospects that the Cubs have in their system, really pitcher heavy guys. It's like, and I don't know if eventually they're going to have to get to a point. They've still got Braylon Marquez at like the, top 5 prospects. And Justin Steele, who's pitching tonight, who really needs, he doesn't need, but it would be nice to see Justin Steele get 6-7 innings, if that's even possible in today's game. Last game he went out.
Well, he's only got 7 innings to work with, so
that's right. True. Good point.
Not a real complete game, but for purposes of
maybe
the doubleheader.
But he's given up
5's good.
Over 9 innings. He gave up. He's given up 5 runs so far as a starter in his first 2 starts. So it'd be nice to see him come out and kind of control things. And this is a good team to get some confidence against. The Rockies are playing like trash. So,
yeah, I mean, I think the thing, and when you look at him, like that first game, he was great except for like 8 pitches. And in those 8 pitches, right, there's a lot of damage. There's like 2 homers and a double, and that really cost him. In the last game, same thing. It's like he'll have this hiccup, but we did see him at least the last time get the strikeouts up a little bit. The stuff was working. So, I mean, it's there. We've seen what he can do as a reliever in the big leagues. When he went back to get stretched out in Iowa, he was really dominant. So, I'm excited to see, can he get out there against this bad lineup? And sometimes that's all it takes. It's like one start, get a really good one under your belt, and then you get that confidence rolling again, because it's a very different situation to come in as a starter than to work as a reliever. And if he can get that going, I do think that there's a lot of big stuff for him ahead. I mean, he's a guy you can plug in there, and if you him and Alzolay, you get some of these younger guys coming up. Like I said, if Marquez can put it together. And they got a bunch of relievers. Now all of a sudden you've at least limited the amount of work that you've got to do out in free agency, finding a starting pitcher, because Lord knows you're not getting it done. I mean, I love Kyle Hendricks to death, and he's great. He has been a great pitcher during his time with the Cubs. But if that dude is remaining your number 1 moving forward, you do not have a playoff caliber rotation, period. Point by, and I know, listen, I know what Hendricks has done in the playoffs. I'm not disputing that. But if he is your number 1, I just don't know that to me, that signals you don't have the horses behind him.
You're not contending really for a World Series. Done.
Right. You're just not. And even and it's still so weird to me. He's got 14 wins. He still leads the majors in wins. Right. But the way he's done it, again, this is where it's inexplicable. Because the Cubs are so bad, and yet he still leads the league in wins. But it's not as if he's really even having anywhere close to his best season. He's given up a ton of homers, a ton of hits. He's given up the most hits in the majors, which you kind of expect from him. But he's walking more batters, and he's given up way more homers. And despite that, they're actually giving him enough run support to get him those wins, which is really kind of odd the way that goes. Should his profile age well? Absolutely. Might he return to a better form than what we've, from this year and than what we've seen in the past? Absolutely, he could. But unless you stock up, because here's the thing, in the playoffs, it doesn't matter what your 5-man rotation is, because you're not starting 5 guys. You're going to 3, maybe 4. And as things stand right now, especially and here's what worries me, is that Alzolay has done a lot better with limiting the walks, but he gives up a ton of homers. And we just talked about Hendricks. You need to have those guys who they're going to go out and shut somebody down, because you don't get that chance to just come back every 5th day and make 30 starts over the course of a season, or 35 starts. Every start's got to be on point if you're going to go out there and win in the playoffs. So that's concerning. Do you have those guys in your system that you say can come up? And even if you do, you can't just rely. You can't sit there and go oh, yeah, we're going to call up 2 more starters, and we'll have a totally homegrown starting rotation. And it'll all be great. No, you got to go out and spend some money on some of those guys who can go out and win you ball games throughout the season, and then in October. So, do they spend that money now? Do they wait? I don't know. It'll
They're not going to
be
spend it now.
interesting. Yeah, well, more than likely not.
And when you talk about Hendricks, he's got a career high 4.09 ERA. He's never finished with an ERA above 4. And the last time he was anywhere near that was in 2015, which was a while ago. And he's in terms of strikeouts, he's striking out less than he ever has. He's at 6.7 strikeouts per 9 innings, which is a career low outside of his 2014 year. When he was a rookie. And so, yeah, it doesn't feel real good. If this is, if he's regressing to this level, the Cubs are in some serious trouble in terms of pitching for the next couple of years. I mean, it's just like, like we were talking about, Braylon Marquez, he's at the top of a lot of prospect lists right now, but we haven't seen him play for a while.
Well, the last time he pitched competitively was the last game of the season last year. Right, when he came up and made that appearance against the White Sox. And again, there's nothing to take away from that. But last season he was delayed in getting going because, again, the season got started back up again. He had not really done a very good job with physical fitness. He took a long time to get back into shape. And then this year, he had issues with the COVID intake process. He ended up kind of hurting his shoulder a little bit and that may have been an issue of overweight. I don't think it's really hurt, but some shoulder stiffness or issues, and again, just being in shape and being able to get back to baseball activity. So we probably won't see him pitch again. Maybe the Arizona Fall League, they may try that to get him some more innings against some decent competition. It's tough, man, because you can't. If he was supposed to be at Double-A this year, starting out, maybe in Triple-A, move that through the system, get that, and then come on up. Well, now you've lost the whole year after losing most of last year.
I know. That's where I'm concerned.
That's tough.
Yeah, that's where I'm concerned. Is he's losing all this experience in the minor leagues. And it's like what I didn't understand last year was why he was up, right? He had been up for a while, but they just didn't put him in. And so it's
he was only
they put him in?
He was only called up for the last day. That was it. Just the last day? Yeah. So, but we just kept talking about they should call him up. He was at the alternate site the whole time.
Yeah. Okay. But it felt like they should have gotten him 2, 3, 4, kind of games in there. And why they waited until the very last game, it made no sense whatsoever. I don't know if that was a Ross thing or if that was a Hoyer thing or Epstein, I guess, at the time, but who knows? That was strange the way they handled that.
Yeah, and what we saw, and last year when there were just a huge number of players who were coming up and making their MLB debuts, who were jumping all the way up from Single-A, Double-A, and even to make debuts in the postseason of all places, right? Like coming up consistently because you had so few players who were able to ramp up. You had so much of a need for more relief pitchers among everything, and starters as well, but primarily relievers because you were burning through them so fast. The starters were pitching very short outings. And, who knew with the COVID stuff, and you had a lot of guys going on the COVID IL, needing to call people up to even to field the team. We saw, Miami, my goodness, look at how many players on their prospects have had major league experience because they had to, because half the team was quarantined, and they couldn't keep laying off games. And so that was what was concerning. It's like you could have called this guy up. You could have gotten him some of this experience to see what he is. Of course, it didn't matter. He wasn't on the playoff roster, and it wouldn't have mattered because they flamed out with 2 games against the Marlins, again, where they just scored, 1 total run or whatever it was. Just super boring. It's like, what else are you waiting for? And I know a lot of people, like the common refrain from people is going to be like, hey, they didn't want to start a service time clock. Well, you know what? That really doesn't have anything to do with it when you're dealing with a pitcher who you think has limited bullets. It's not like a guy who's going to come up and a position player who can, who you can be reasonably sure is going to be able to come up and play for you for 5 or 6 or 7 years. With pitchers, especially if you're talking about a guy who throws over 100 miles an hour, you don't want to waste those bullets and have him keep throwing in the minors. If you think he's ready to go, you bring him up and you use everything that you can from him. And I know that sounds kind of a little bit, it doesn't sound real nice from a human perspective, but you don't sit there and wait on the service time thing when you get a pitcher like that. If he could throw like triple digits, especially from the left side. So I know he's got a lot to work on, but I'm very concerned about his development path because of the last couple of years for sure.
Yeah. And we got a couple comments over here talking about why didn't the Cubs trade Contreras and Hendricks, and you and I were talking about that just a little bit ago about what are the Cubs going to do with Wilson Contreras, because if they have no intention of signing him, which they've shown they have completely no ability to extend anyone except for Kyle Hendricks, who we were just talking about, then why didn't they trade Wilson Contreras at the deadline? Why wait to see if you can re-sign him? You know what they should have done? They should have traded all the players and at the same time announced we have extended Wilson Contreras, because at least then that would have made sense.
Yeah, at least it would have been a nice news drop, again, some PR. But yeah, if you don't extend him this winter as quickly as possible, what are you doing? Because now you're letting the same thing play out again. And if you end up having to just trade him at the deadline for pennies on the dollar, when you could have, I mean, honestly, of all we've been talking about, because they've been talking about this reckoning for like 2.5, 3 years now. And I had assumed the whole time that he would be the most likely to go because he has the better value at that premium position and with the extra year of control. If they don't re-sign him and they don't trade him this winter, to me, that's another egregious failure. And I don't want him traded. I don't want to see that happen. But if you're going to let him walk just like you did with the other players, or not let him walk, they did trade them. But if you're going to let it go that far to where you're now dealing with a limited return, what were you doing, right? If you don't have the money and you're not going to pay him, you have to move it. I mean, that's the only situation. But I just don't trust that either way. And I don't know. Nothing would surprise me at this point. We've gone too far with that.
A 10-game win streak would probably surprise you.
That would surprise. Although, hey, they got enough games against the Pirates. Like, what, you just got to get hot, like win one against somebody. They get do they have a 4-gamer? They have a 4-gamer with the Pirates left, right? You could sweep them in 4.
Yeah, they've got seven games left against the Pirates. So,
yeah, I mean, they could string together some weird games in between there. It could happen. Who knows?
They just went out from here on out.
Yeah. Get back to like close enough to contention. You know what I mean? Like watch somebody else just take it and they all of a sudden they run. I mean, clearly that won't happen, but it would be kind of funny. And then you have it. But I don't want that, because then you got a lot of people like that are trying to be justified by see, they were right to trade the core. Look at what they've done now. Look at what these scrappy players who really want it, Frank Schwindel, carrying them to victory.
Frank Schwindel, good old Frank. Although Frank did have a triple today.
He did. Good for him.
And it's hard when you look at I mean, obviously all these guys, their dreams are coming true by playing in the majors, right? I mean, these are guys who, may not have gotten this much playing time in the majors their entire career had the Cubs not kind of been in the position they're in right now. So, you got to be excited about the guys being out there. It's got to kind of feel crummy though. Like, knowing that like you're kind of the players who they put out there because they don't want to win. I don't know if they look at it that way. I doubt they do, but it's got to be kind of in the back of your mind, right?
Yeah, I mean, you're either out there because of injury, because they traded other guys away, because they gave up on the season, and so it's the kid on the end of the bench in the basketball game when he's a 20-20 player, right? He only gets in the game when his team's up 20 or down 20, and when that's the lineup that you're rolling out on an everyday basis, like, yeah, you are going to have some guys who, Rafael Ortega, and we mentioned Schwindel there, and some others who have really done well because of that. But I mean, when you are talking about, hey, Andrew and Austin Romine are both playing together, it's a cool story, but it's only happening because the Cubs just don't have a full out major league roster that they should have. They do not have a roster that's built to win games, and that's the long and the short of it. So, but at the same time, I think if you're one of those guys who's out there because of that, you still go out there and you bust your ass the same way you would, whether it was your junior high team or whatever, because, hey, guess what? Somebody, even if you're not with the Cubs next year, maybe somebody's going to see that. Maybe you're going to get signed as a result of it. Maybe they do keep you around. So I applaud those guys for being able to go out there and still having energy and still being excited to be out there playing the game for a team that is really best served trying to lose to get to the best draft position it can. So for them to still go out there and to do what they do, day after day, knowing that it's probably not going to end well. It's commendable. I just hope that, and at least it's exciting for them. You know what I mean? Like Patrick Wisdom's hitting homers. That's super exciting. He's enjoying it. That's not an indictment of any players that came before him. It's just the fact that, like, you know what? They're out here winning games, and it's pretty damn cool for them. Rafael Ortega, good for him with his big walk-off shot the other day. That's awesome. His 3-homer game a couple weeks back. Like, nobody can take that away. Right?
Yeah, it's
Patrick Wisdom leads the NL in homers. Nobody gets to take that away from him. So good for him. I'm happy for them individually, even if as a team there are some things about which I am not going to be able to get excited about.
Just a few things.
Yeah,
just a couple. But
Nothing
like we
major.
said, like we were watching the game today, and like, when Wisdom hit that home run, I mean, these guys look like kids playing Little League again. I mean, they're just short of just dogpiling everybody like the kids do when a kid hits a home run. And so it's like you feel that, and so it's cool to see like that level of excitement coming from Major League ball players, which I think we miss a lot, especially when you get teams that are used to winning. So I mean, that's fun.
Yeah, and what's funny, and it might not win much, but the other thing that's interesting is that they pointed this out, I think, in Monday's game, is that the Cubs actually got older as on average. Their team is older now than what it was before the trade deadline, because you've got these guys. Wisdom is a rookie, but he's 29 years old. Rafael Ortega doesn't have much experience. He's 30. These guys who they're bringing in here are not young. It's not like they jettisoned off their best players and then brought in a bunch of rookies or a bunch of, guys from Double A who are 21, 22 years old to fill those spots. The Cubs are still an old team, and that's the thing that's kind of wild to watch. But I think that's where you see that appreciation even more, because you do have a guy like Patrick Wisdom who's 29 and has never gotten a real shot before this, right? And now he's getting it. Or Ortega, same thing. And Michael Hermosillo, Ortega debuted like 9 years ago originally. And so these guys have been in the minors. They've been in a bunch of different organizations. They've fought and scratched and clawed and stayed in the game for so long, and now they're kind of being rewarded, even if it's just kind of on a karmic level, and individually more than the team success. But baseball's a tough grind when you're not, not everybody's Mike Trout, right? Not everybody just comes up and is the best player on the planet consistently from the time that he debuted for another decade or more. So to see these guys spend 5, 6, 7 years in the minors and do well, that's very, very cool for them. And that, again, that is absolutely worth applauding. Whether they repeat that success in the future or not, it's great. I do enjoy that.
It's you got to kind of try to take something out of what we have to watch over the next month. And the thing is that, we still watch the games. I mean, we have a podcast, a webcast that we turn into a podcast. We run Cubs Insider. So we're going to be watching.
Yeah. Even sometimes when we don't want to.
It's kind of nice not caring for once, though. It's been a while since you just didn't care about it.
And it does make it easier. I wrote about that the other day. It does honestly make it easier to not be as concerned with the individual outcomes of the games. Yeah. Because it means if I have to go do something else for a while, I can, or if I flip the channel for a little while to catch something else that's going on, and I come back, and you follow it on your phone. I can have my earbuds in and listening to it. But to be able to follow it at arm's length a little bit is a little bit refreshing, and I think that does help to kind of recharge the batteries on some of that stuff and to focus on bigger picture things. So I don't want that to continue. I want to get back to having to be concerned with the day-to-day stuff, but as someone who writes up the lineups all the time, which at some point here, I guess I got to get the second game out, and then looking at recaps and that sort of thing, it's sort of nice to just be like, all right, that stuff, if I don't get to it immediately, it's okay. You know what I mean? It's like cooking with a crock pot instead of a microwave. You know what I mean? Like, whatever, man. It's a slow cooker. If it sits there for an extra 2 hours, nobody's going to mind. It might even be better.
I like that analogy. The Cubs are no longer a microwave. They are a crock pot.
They are definitely a crock of shit. So there's at least that.
On that note, I think we should end today's show. But we'll circle back after. Who knows what's going to happen? Maybe the Cubs sweep the White Sox. I'd be shocked. You never know. Could happen.
It could happen.
No, I don't think it could. What are the odds? I'd like to see the Vegas odds on that.
Yeah, I don't think it's very good, but I can maybe I'll pull up a betting site. We can I can parlay those. Just Cubs money line on all three. We'll see what happens.
Let's do like $10 on it. Probably turn into a millionaire or something.
Yeah. Hey,
we'll see.
There we go. Then we can retire.
All right. Okay, everybody. Well, thanks for joining us. I know hopefully we're easier to watch than the Cubs. So, hey, at least you got that going for you.
Yeah.
Never
a bad thing.
Until next time. See ya.